Thank you so much, Neota. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do business for just about 30 minutes. Then we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. We start from the global space. Oil prices fell slightly today, Friday, as a risk that a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico will affect U.S. oil and gas output that declined, while marketers continue to weigh how President-elect Donald Trump's policies might affect supplies. And of course, we remember that yesterday also we saw that Federal Reserve meeting and they cut rate 0.25%. So this morning we see Brent sustaining the $75 level, $75.37 a barrel, down 0.3%. The inverse is the case for WTI. It's up 0.5%. I guess a whole lot of things happening in the United States can be connected to that. So WTI is $72.01 a barrel, and we'll see a reduction in that difference in the prices there for them. Well, the benchmark fell after being nearly 1% up on Thursday. For the week, Brent is set to gain 3.1%, while WTI is set to rise 4.1%. Prices corrected after gaining support on Thursday on expectation that Trump's incoming administration may tighten sanctions on Iran and Venezuela, which could limit supply and, of course, boost price. There was strong dollar and lower crude imports in China caps gains. A strong dollar makes oil more expensive for other currency holders and tends to weigh on prices. Also, downward pressure came from data showing that crude imports in China, which is the world's biggest oil importer, fell 9% in the month of October. And that's the sixth consecutive month showing a year-on-year decline. So we don't know what's going to happen to demand in China, looking at the past, the history of the relationship between Trump when he was president and that country. Now let's look at our currency back here in Nigeria. We saw NAFEX depreciate. The day before it was gaining. So it seems almost all through this week we've been seeing an inverse relationship between both. So while NFM we saw gain 2.51% to close at 1,639. Thankful for this. I think this is the first gain we've recorded this week on NFM. So opened at 1,681 and 65 naira and closed at 1,639 naira 50 kobo. Inverse is the case for NAFEX at the close of trade yesterday. And yes, yesterday we're talking about the issue of intervention from the CBN. We haven't seen that this week. Mr. Bismarck Karani, the Chief Executive Officer, thinks that perhaps they're working on that schedule or program that will make it, not just sustainable, but also predictable and create a certain level of certainty in the market. Perhaps that's what the CBN is working on, and that's why we have not had an intervention in the market this week. Now, the Tinkan Island Command Management Team of the Nigeria Customs Service has hit a new revenue generation record in the command as it's made over 1 trillion naira looking at from January till date. The controller of the command, Dera Nadi, explains that a higher percentage of importers are now compliant and fair in their cargo declaration, which yields to a better revenue generation for the command.
I just announced here that the one we handed. We are glad to announce that several of our stakeholders share our vision of voluntary compliance and are supporting our reforms in the command. With the cooperation of this category of stakeholders and a few others who we have encouraged to comply through our enlightenment programs, we are glad to announce that the command as of today, the 7th of November 2024, has generated the sum of 1,046,496,000,000 naira to the Federation account through the custom revenue we generated. The command wishes to celebrate this milestone of collecting over 1 trillion as custom duty, being the first time this has been achieved in the history of Tinkan Island Port Command. I dedicate this achievement to the Controller General of Customs, Bashir Adewale Adeni, MFR, and his management team.
Well, do I say congratulations to the customs or congratulations to Nigeria? What remains is to see where that revenue will head to and how it will affect, capital spending, especially in the country. Now, experts say that for Nigeria to achieve the targeted $1 trillion economy, the federal government must provide enablers for such growth with formulation of supportive policies and laws that will attract investors into the capital market. And this is the tone at the financial expert meet at the 28th annual stockbrokers conference. Happened in Ibadan. The second day is today, actually. So you have day 2 today in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. And they said despite the global economic crisis, Nigeria has a vibrant economy that must be nurtured for exponential growth and tangible prosperity. This formed the basis of conversation at the conference with the theme Capital Markets as the Catalyst for the $1 trillion economy. The agreement here is that the capital market plays a pivotal role in achieving this target, but both the public and private sectors at various levels need to harness and mobilize capital for their broad and varying needs.
One of the cardinal objectives of this government is to achieve a $1 trillion economy within the next 3 years. And we feel that stock market, capital market, is the most visible avenue to achieve that as it is now.
Technology is always an enabler. And for us at the SSA, it is the prime reason for growth. So you employ technology from different angles. And so what you have seen so far is the use of technology to drive the market, with more investors coming into the market via technology. As you are aware, we just launched the offering platform, that baited and also helped in the offering processes for banks recently, for which over 1.7 trillion naira was raised. That's to tell you what technology does.
Energy security is a must-have for any development to take place in any country. The real sector in Nigeria, led by the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, believe this conversation must be had. And they say they've done some research and are willing to share it, propose solutions with stakeholders in the value chain of creating energy security. That's the theme and the focus of their energy summit, which is to hold later on this month. Members of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria believe that they have explored workable ideas to solve Nigeria's energy deficiency. They are now set to share the findings and collaborate with other stakeholders through the Manufacturers Energy Security Summit.
So what we're trying to do is, one, look at those who have this opportunity to supply, to generate power, or have excess of power. Get members on the other hand who are in need of that. Bring these two together and create a synergy so it will work. Any other thing that MPDC can do to ensure this could happen, MPDC will do that within its scope of objectives.
It's intended to serve as a platform for manufacturers and others to discuss and explore sustainable solutions for the industrial growth of the country.
Okay, why don't we look beyond what is in the grid and look at sustainable energy? So we are now advocacy for members to switch or mix a switch. Either you're working with the current fossil fuel where you have source from the grid and generators, and then lace it with solar.
The Manufacturers Energy Security Summit is with the theme Energy Adequacy for Industrial Growth. It's a 3-day event scheduled to hold from November 19.
Thank you so much for joining. And also
now let's talk about a matter that has been on for a while now. That's the upgrade of banking apps. Core banking apps is what they call it, and looking at where we are at this time. Let's have this conversation now with Dr. Yele Okeremi is the Chief Executive Officer of Precise Financial Systems. We know him very well, dealing with software and all those ICT issues. Dr. Okeremi, thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you for your time on the program.
Very good morning, Nini. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, even though it's virtual. But the issue of this transition, we've been at it now. I think it's about a month. We've had announcements, preparing consumers, but now we've seen it taking longer than was expected. Transition to new core banking applications. Help us to understand what's really going on here.
Well, see, for banks and other organizations to decide to change their core banking, core applications, ordinarily speaking, it's not a routine thing at all. It's something that's taken very seriously. But then, of course, it happens from time to time there are several factors that could lead to the desire or the requirement to want to upgrade or to change core applications. Principal factor being technological changes. So you recognize that sometimes you realize that the owners of the intellectual property of the platforms that you are probably using have decided not to further support the old platforms. And so in a manner of speaking, that can force organizations to say, yes, it's important for us to migrate to some platform that will be supported, because support is very, very key. But the bottom line is that when these kind of things happen, whenever an organization wants to move or migrate, and I'm using these words very carefully, there's a possibility of saying you want to migrate, there's a possibility of saying you want to upgrade. Now, whichever one you choose to do is never cheap. And the reasons why it is never cheap is that as much as possible, you want to carry along legacy data along with you. Now, that will be challenging. And the levels of complexity of these challenges vary. It depends on the type of upgrade or migration that is happening. So if it's a migration of merely the presentation layer, an upgrade of just the presentation layer, then that's very easy. These are the kind of things that happen, and you probably will not even know. For many of us that use mobile devices, so from time to time you see your application is upgrading. So and you probably don't even know anything happened. But when the changes or the upgrade are fundamental, affecting the structure of the data, then sometimes it could take I don't want to say a very long time. It could take longer than just merely, when the presentation layer is being changed. And that's why you notice that in very many clients, changing core applications, it's not something anybody wants to do every 5 years or even every 10 years. That's why you come to the US, for example, you see banks that are running application. They've been running this application for several years, and the applications still run because they know that the change might not be very easy. And sometimes the change may not also be cheap. And as we are seeing in Nigeria, the change may be very painful, particularly to customers. And remember one thing, when we talk about banking, it's easy to look at banking as a business. Yes, indeed, banking is a business. But one thing people do not talk about is that banking is trust. So banking is not merely a private business. Banking is trust, because banking has access and holds significantly public funds. And when you have this kind of things, you notice that every smart or every sane government anywhere in the world is concerned about trusts. Because when trusts begin to break down, then you might just be looking for social unrest. And this is why these are very important things that people should pay attention to. But again, what we are seeing happening right now is as a result of the fact that for some reason, I don't remember this happened, in about the year 2000, in the Y2K, the Millennium Bug, I know a number of banks upgraded and changed applications. But since year 2000, I do not recollect when you have about 3-4 banks, in quick succession, upgrading applications. And I think that these are the issues that have caused a lot of furore in the country.
So Dr. Keremi, do you think that perhaps there were not three steps that should have been taken before this? Do you think perhaps that is why we have this major disruption, which is still ongoing even up till now?
Well, the honest truth as a practitioner, because my company is also involved in some of these kind of things. We do these kind of things. So sometimes it's not because you are not prepared. Sometimes, and I'm not exonerating that perhaps there are issues of lack of preparedness, but sometimes even your best of preparations may not be sufficient when you get into the field, particularly when you are making very complex changes. Like I said earlier, so you can talk about three layers in modern applications today. We talk about the presentation layer, we talk about the logic layer, and we talk about the data layer. Like I said earlier, if you are merely changing the presentation layer, that might just be a matter of hours, sometimes even minutes. Nobody even notices anything, and things go on. Sometimes when you are making changes to the application layer, it might take a little longer, but it gets more complex when you are making changes at the data layer. And it again gets further complex when you are moving or migrating to entirely new structures, entirely new databases, and some of the times you are moving to entirely new operating systems, sometimes you are moving to entirely new hardware platforms. Now, some of these things can really be challenging. So even with your best of plans with your best of documentations, there are possibilities of glitches when you go ahead. And then when you also recognize the fact that the core applications that we see in very many banks all over the world, not just related to Nigeria, it's called the core because it is the center. There are several affiliated and several associated applications that are interfacing and talking and listening to this core application. And some of the applications are developed and provided and supported by third parties. So again, sometimes these handshakes sometimes look very pretty on paper, but when you get to the field, they may not be as pretty as they look on paper.
All right, Dr. Keremi, just do hold your thought for a minute. We need to go on a commercial break. We'll be back to continue this conversation. And I'd like for you to chew on the perspective that perhaps it is the migration of talent, especially in the ICT sector in Nigeria, which started, I think, last year or 2 years ago, that has put us in this, this situation that we're in. But we'll talk about that after this break. Oh, welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We've been speaking with the Chief Executive Officer of Precise, joining us to discuss the issue of the core banking apps upgrade, which has caused a whole lot of disruption in the financial sector in the country. Dr. Keremi, thank you so much for your patience. So how would you react to the perspective that it's the migration of talents, the popular now Japa, that has put us in this trouble that we are facing?
Now, look, and this is just the truth. Remember, I was describing to you the process and the theory that's involved in migration. But like I said, first of all, when these kind of projects are supposed to take place anywhere in the world, you need a pilot. That's the person who's the top man, who's driving this entire initiative. And the pilot is somebody that's responsible for the overall delivery. Now you're expecting somebody that's extensively experienced, not only experienced, extensively knowledgeable, because experience is about, I did this 2 years ago and this is what I got. But you need somebody who has absolute and excellent knowledge and understanding of the issues on the table. And this pilot must necessarily be supported by a very strong team of team leads, and then you have team members. Now, everything you are discussing for you to have a smooth sail depends on the understanding and the talent. And if you are lacking in any of these areas, of course, it will be a factor in either slowing down or even sometimes outright failures of the entire process. Absolutely, I don't think any bank will completely say that they have not suffered from the exodus of talent. And exodus of talent, the country in all facets, particularly in technology. So you see that technology, it's impossible for you to compensate technology experts the way the economy of Nigeria is today appropriately when you compare to what they are capable of getting elsewhere. So expectedly, you expect that such talent will migrate to where they're going to be best seated. So when this happens, and we've seen this, I mean, my company, we do extensive work with banks. I mean, we've worked with more than 120 banks across the world. But when we look at our experience in Nigeria and in Africa, we've seen that a lot of times delivering simple applications may be challenging, not because they are not willing, but because some of these experiences are no longer available. And then you see, the honest truth of the matter is that you are looking at tech experience alone. No, when you are doing this kind of extensive thing, it's not just tech experience that you are looking for. You are looking for people who have the domain knowledge and understanding of the business itself to help you lead the initiative hand in hand with the technology guys. Because technology guys understand tech, but the business people are the ones that know the rules that need to be followed. And they are the ones that ultimately test and tell us whether it is properly delivered or not. Where are these talents? The industry is completely in dearth. I talk about, when I look at my own generation of bankers, all of us, maybe you have a handful of us who are still CEOs. You know, maybe 3-4 people by generation are still CEOs of banks. But take a look at the layer below that, then you realize that the banking industry itself is in big trouble. You know, because these are the days when I see bankers, unfortunately, due to no fault of theirs sometimes, and of course sometimes due to some fault of theirs, some bankers at senior levels cannot even calculate simple interest anymore. We're having challenges in that area. So we have serious issues in that area, and of course, it will definitely be a factor that's affecting some of these deliveries. No doubt about that. But essentially, let's bear in mind that migrations of platforms, not beans. And that's why very many banks outside of Nigeria don't do it on a routine basis. Nobody does it on a routine basis.
So now, I think one of the top most worrying questions you would hear is, it does seem like some funds have been stuck in between banks, in all of this process. So even when a bank comes out to say, okay, we're now done with the process, our apps are now working efficiently, some transactions that were initiated, in that period seems to be stuck. I wonder what the fate of a customer should be. You go to your bank, they said, oh, there was no fund drop. You go to the other bank, they say, we already debited that. So I don't know, is there a way to get proof? Is there a way for customers to get relief and, compensation for some of those funds that seem to be stuck in transaction?
Now, see, the honest truth of the matter is that I laughed when you started talking about those issues, because if indeed, even PF, my own company, as influential as we are, have some of those challenges, where we transferred money to some people. I mean, we were talking about months ago, and the monies left our account. It didn't get to the other account. And at the point I saw back and forth, and I had to say to my people to get in touch with, NIBS, and NIBS told us exactly what was wrong. So these are issues. However, you see, remember one of the things I said is that, yes, banking is business, but banking is trust. And this is where regulation and regulatory supervision comes in, big time. So you are looking for situations. I mean, some of these monies we are talking about, maybe to some people like yourself, might be nothing, but to some people might be life and death. So if somebody is trying to transfer 25,000 to her relative who is in critical situation in a hospital, and that's the last 25,000 in the account that this person has. She transfers the money, account debited, the other party didn't receive the money, the relative or the loved one is probably in coma. How do you handle these kind of things? So ordinarily speaking, there should be guardrails that should be provided at the highest levels, at supervisory levels, that ensure that the interests of customers are protected. So, I mean, for example, in some countries, in the United States, for example, if I went through my accounts in the US and I saw a transaction that I don't feel that I don't recognize, if I go on the platform and I say I'm disputing that transaction, no questions are asked. I get the credit immediately while the bank is investigating. And sometimes they come and say, okay, so sometimes they say, well, having done our investigations, we recognize that you should have been debited, and then they take the money back. But sometimes you don't hear anything back from them. It tells that your transaction, and they conclude and say, well, we've investigated, everything is fine, you can go ahead. I have belief as a customer that if I transfer money to somebody, if the person doesn't get the money, I can get the money almost instantly. I am aware of, just like you said, transactions that are in limbo for weeks, and it's generally and point blank unacceptable. And sometimes I would even say irresponsible that these are happening. But again, these faults, we have sufficient room to blame, the players. Because sometimes I've seen the fact that the people you are even talking to in the banks are overwhelmed. They don't even want to go ahead and investigate. And some of them don't even know what channels to investigate. So they become, rather than assistants who are willing to help you, they become gatekeepers who are trying to keep you out and who are trying to tell you that, sorry, there's nothing I can do. Why should you tell me there's nothing you can do about my own money that I have kept? No, that's irresponsible. But we have seen some of it.
Yes, I guess perhaps we need to call out to the regulator to come in now, because there are a number of transactions that, as you described, are in limbo as we speak, and they've been hanging for weeks now.
Yes.
And the customers really do not know what else to do, because I've been to the bank recently, and true word, Dr. Keremi, those customer service, they're overwhelmed at this time. They really don't know what to do. So I guess it's our duty right here as the media to call out the regulators to intervene in this, and we'll stay on that matter. But thank you so much, Chief Executive Officer of Precise Financial Systems, for joining us all the way from New Jersey. I know the time difference makes it uncomfortable for you, but thank you for your time this morning.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. All right, let's just do a bit of the market. For a second time this week, we saw the bull out at the close of trade yesterday, and it's thanks to Aradel again. Aradel is back on the winning streak. Well, after it's lost so much in the share price, I guess it looks attractive again, but we don't know how long it will last, because I believe that those major investors in Aradel Holdings are out to take profit, and they are the ones that have been driving that market. But see here, 0.37% in the green, and that's some money added to the market at the close of trade, 58.731 trillion naira. As you can expect, oil and gas was up yesterday, 1.8%. Talking about the counters, consumer goods and all of that, not a whole lot of movement. But I'll be back this afternoon. I'll be here with Will Ibon. We'll take you through the market. And both of us will do 55 minutes of business. That's what we do on Business Incorporated. So do make it a date, 1 p.m. I'll be back. I'm Mini John Mekwa. I hand you back to Nelta and Kayla.